The prison tower was ablaze, and there, Rin and Iska confronted the treacherous demon who had defected to the queen, Salinger. Iska, wielding his sword, stood in front, while Rin, injured, was behind him. She asked Rin to promise that she would defeat Salinger, and in return, Rin must not touch her or her friends until they successfully crossed the border. Rin remained silent, which Iska took as an agreement, and he drew his second sword from its scabbard. Salinger, seeing Iska protecting Rin, became slightly puzzled but paid it no mind as he proceeded to attack Iska. Meanwhile, in another part of the tower, Alice, who was evacuating the guards, was startled by the sound of an explosion from another section of the tower. The scene shifted to where a young girl with pink hair stood alone, lost in thought. She was startled by a servant's call, searching for her and urging her to take cover. Ignoring the servant's words, she inquired about the situation. The servant gently explained the ongoing events. The narrative then returned to Salinger, who was impressed by Iska's successful counterattack. He was intrigued by the technique Iska used to deflect his attack. Salinger raised his hand, and Rin, seeing this, warned Iska to be cautious. However, as she spoke, she was attacked by Salinger and thrown far back, with a warning not to interfere with their fight. Salinger continued his assault on Iska, who easily dodged it. Having successfully evaded, Iska leaped towards Salinger, surprising him and preventing him from dodging Iska's swing towards his head. Iska's attack was blocked by Salinger's invisible shield. Since the strike did not hit, Iska leaped back to distance himself from Salinger. Not wanting to miss another opportunity, Iska ran towards Salinger to strike down his invisible shield. As Iska approached, Salinger used his earth magic to make the ground around Iska float. Iska followed suit by jumping onto the levitated ground, using it as a foothold to get closer to Salinger. When Iska stood directly in front of him, he attempted to strike, but Salinger managed to evade and leap back a considerable distance, preparing for another attack. The trembling ground prompted Rin to scream at Iska to jump. Upon hearing Rin's shout, Iska leaped, and just below him, a surge of magma began to erupt. Iska felt relieved by Rin's assistance, and he replied that it was the least she could do. Upon hearing Rin's words, Salinger stated that he hadn't used his cards at all and suggested that they should annihilate each other before witnessing his true strength. On the other hand, Alice was still occupied with the evacuation and ordered the guards to help her search for Salinger. However, while she was speaking, she was abruptly interrupted by Nameless, who launched a surprise attack on her. Quickly, Alice summoned ice to ward off Nameless's attack. After repelling his assault, Alice speculated that attacking the prison and Salinger's liberation were his doing. Ignoring Alice's warning, Nameless advised her to focus on what lay ahead, where the burning prison and Salinger's treachery would cause further chaos. With confidence, Alice vowed to stop Salinger and unleashed her ice to attack Nameless. Finding himself about to be attacked, Nameless dodged by leaping backward into a burst of flames and continued to taunt Alice. Alice, losing track of Nameless, searched for him while shouting to confront him seriously, just as before. Nameless, at the top of the tower, responded to Alice and chose to withdraw rather than face her. As Alice intended to chase after him, she was startled by an explosion behind her, causing her to turn and assess the situation. She witnessed a massive burst of fire soaring high into the sky and was surprised to see Salinger standing on the tower's beam with Iska right in front of him. A flashback showed Iska and Salinger facing off, where Salinger used his mirror spirit magic to divide the spirit energy into two parts. A blue flame appeared in the sky, prompting Iska to run towards it and strike. However, after slashing through the fire, another flame emerged and hit Iska, causing a massive explosion of fire. Iska, who received the attack, vanished instantly, causing Rin to worry about him. She then asked if stealing so much spirit energy was his goal. Salinger replied that combining spirits with each other was common, but his aim went beyond that. He intended to merge humans with spirits. In this world, there were only two people capable of merging humans with spirits, and one of them was the Nebulous Sovereign. Salinger intended to surpass the concept of earthly kings and ascend to that level. After hearing Salinger's goal, Rin raised her sword and insisted on stopping him. She explained that Iska was still alive and was the one who could defeat the Sovereign. The previous attack wasn't enough to kill him. Salinger, tired of Rin, began preparing his attack, and at the same time, Iska leaped and swung his sword towards him. Surprised, Salinger quickly jumped to avoid the attack. Iska continued to chase after him. As they both halted on one of the towers, Salinger speculated how Iska had survived his attack. Iska had survived thanks to replicating the ice magic he had used to freeze himself during the explosion. Salinger then leaped onto the prison tower and unleashed combined water and lightning magic to attack Iska. Seeing Iska caught in the storm created by Salinger, Rin summoned her golem to protect herself from Salinger's lightning attacks and shouted for Iska to defeat him. Annoyed by Rin's actions, Salinger used lightning magic to strike her, but suddenly, the lightning transformed into chunks of ice. A familiar voice came from Rin's right. It was Alice, who had come to rescue her. Alice arrived, hugged Rin, and praised her. Meanwhile, Iska was running towards Salinger to attack him. Salinger then created a sword with his magic to block Iska's attack, but Iska easily shattered the sword. Cornered, Salinger laughed, feeling delighted to have encountered such a formidable opponent as Iska. He continued by declaring that there was no earthly being capable of stopping his ambitions, then jumped into the hole behind him in the prison tower. Iska, witnessing this, could only remain silent and watch him fall into the hole. The sun had risen, and the flames in the prison tower had been extinguished. Alice, standing in front of the tower, received a report that the escaped prisoners had been recaptured. Worried, Alice inquired about Rin's condition and tried to touch her wound, causing Rin to suddenly cry out in pain. Rin continued her report on the situation in the prison tower. After hearing the report, Alice stated that she would explain the details once they returned to the palace. Meanwhile, at the Imperial headquarters, a jet had landed and Nameless disembarked. But to his surprise, he was greeted by another Nameless. One of the Nameless removed his helmet, revealing himself to be Rizia. She complained about the costume she had to wear, and Nameless conveyed that 2 units had successfully infiltrated the sovereignty. Upon hearing the report, Rizia felt relieved. At least it could appease the 8th successor's heart, and she left Nameless behind. The scene shifted to a room where the successors discussed the events in the sovereignty and their plans. Meanwhile, at the border of the sovereignty, a car drove away from the territory. Inside the car was Unit N07. Mismas expressed her gratitude for their easy escape. Iska, surprised that they were in the sovereignty, asked how they managed to breach the border. Jin explained it to him. At the same time, their false spirit symbols slowly began to disappear. Iska then sighed and leaned back in his car seat, grumbling that the reason for his fatigue was none other than Alice. He went on to ask about the status of his spirit symbol, and Mismas, shocked and unable to speak, was left speechless. The scene shifted to the Sovereignty Palace, where Alice was. She felt proud that Rin had fought well in the tower, and upon hearing this, Rin felt flattered. However, Rin's expression quickly turned somber because in this case, she couldn't handle it alone. Upon hearing Rin's words, Alice displayed a happy expression as she reminisced about Iska. His name slipped from her petite lips, accidentally heard by Rin, who protested to Alice and forbade her from saying his name, even though he was her rival. On the other side, Alice's sister overheard their conversation. After hearing Iska's name, she remembered the person who had saved her when she was imprisoned in the Empire. She tried to deny it, but if it were true and she could meet him again, she begged to be saved once more.